Hold on to something.
It's showtime.
No, wait. I have done everything I've been asked to do. I didn't understand it, but I've done it. And I haven't once asked what's in it for me.
What are you saying, Ray?
I'm saying, what's in it for me?
Raymond, am I using you, Raymond?
This is the Total Sports Experience.
There's going to be rumors about this. There's no way to stop it.
And now your host,
Ray, are you in here?
Ray Baker.
I miss going 5-hole on you.
You should never be allowed to talk to people.
Dude, that was a hell of an intro. I am honored and I am touched.
So, the questions for today is a few. Do the Leafs win the Cup? Are the Lakers in trouble? And I will put it as my gracious co-host put it to me today. What bank did the Dodgers rob? Welcome to the Total Sports Experience. I am your host, Ray Baker, and this is going to be the first episode, by the way, that we will also transform into the podcast as we do the live shows every week and keep you up to date. But these will also be available on the podcast as you see me here in the studio as well. So welcome in, everybody. It is a Tuesday. It is February 16th, and on the phone with me, the insider, dude, we've named so many names for you. The chef is with me again, Christopher Sheffield. Welcome back, by the way, from cold Connecticut back to sunny Southern California, where it looks like every other part of the country today is in the single digits, with the exception of here in beautiful Southern California.
Thank you very much. I love that intro, and I will say that everyone in America is learning how to New England in the last 3 days or so. I've watched people say, "Hey, have you ever tried this?" I'm like, "Yeah, when I was 4." You know?
Right.
But, I mean, ice skating in Texas, I don't know. I saw that guy take a header through that park. I don't know if you got to see that video as well.
I did. I did see that. So let's first of all, welcome back. I know you just had the Berger Pond hockey. There's some stuff going on with that, so I wanted to look at that first, and get some information from that before we delve in, because you and I mentioned just before we went on the air, dude, there is a lot of sports going on right now, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
And as we continue to grow here and get, I don't want to say back to normal yet, Chef. I don't know. I mean, we're getting some fans in the stands. We're getting more games. It looks like high school sports here in Southern California is finally back to conditioning and stuff. We may be getting back to normal here. I don't want to rush it, but I got my fingers crossed.
Well, I look at it this way. We'll be back to normal if we're back in the movie theaters and Disneyland is at 90% capacity and they're turning people away, and that's when I know that it will be back to normal. And I like to think of normal as, you know what, you can do whatever you want and you don't have to wear a mask. And but I think we're headed in that right direction. I think Mario Cuomo has his Mario. I think little Cuomo Andrew has his hands full with the MSG and the Islanders and the Brooklyn Nets, and he did a smart thing by letting Buffalo Bills fans into the stadium for a little bit with their home games. But I don't know. I hope so. I hope we go back to normal. I'm not sitting here saying I hope we're always closed. I mean, that would be horrible. But
but before we get into everything, you've got. I want to give you a few minutes here because there's a cool fundraiser going on. Talk to me a little bit about what this is, because look, as much as I wanted to be at the pond hockey tournament this year, COVID and everything else did not allow me to, but there is still some cool stuff coming from your neck of the woods here. Yeah,
there's been quite a few different developments in the last few months, and then it really came to fruition just after the event. So at our event, we were allowed to have 50 people, even though it was outdoors. So, I mean, every state is different and every governor is different and all the politics and so forth. So I had 48 people at my pond hockey tournament, and it was at puck drop at 9 a.m. It was 3 degrees. I had
Sure.
teams that would not get out of their car to play their game. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And, we followed all the proper protocols and everything else. And there was a strong gust of wind that came at about 10:30 in the morning. And it took all of our dasher boards and blew them into a straight line like it was logs going down the Mississippi. And I could literally hear one mom go, "That's it." And it was great. And she was the only person there that was holding a Starbucks cup, by the way.
I love the fact, by the way, that
I-
you're doing line changes into a minivan to stay warm to come back out.
Yeah.
That is the best.
There were two guys. They brought these like lawn fire pits or whatever, and one of them was molded like a Jeep, like a kid could it looked like one of those little cars that a kid could ride in. And they started the fire on the pond, and my tournament nurse came running down and she goes, "They cannot have a fire on the pond." And I'm like, "Margaret, the ice is 17 inches thick.
Yeah.
By the time that ice melts, we'll have face burn from the flame."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "You got to have it off that." So anyway, we had it was a great time, but what developed afterwards really picked up a lot of steam. I am organizing and aligning myself with a group that is, I'm not as savvy as most people would think, but I have started a GoFundMe project to purchase the camp itself. So the camp itself is for sale, and we're looking to raise $1.25 million. Now, do I think we'll get that? No. But do I think the camp will be sold for that? I don't think so as well, even though that's what they're asking for. I'm asking for $900 for my dresser that I'm looking at right here. I'll be lucky to get 10. But I have aligned myself with a few different organizations. One of them is the Be Thoughtful organization. And I'm stumbling with the naming rights here as well. But there's a few others that have jumped on board and are going to help me network to get the word out there. So we're going to be approaching corporations. But the biggest thing that I can say is that it would be Berger Pond Hockey with our nonprofit status purchasing the camp, and then we would be in turn turning it over to directors that would run other events at the camp. For example, there's a lot of people in wheelchair or are have the inability to be upright. So there's always these political terms, and I try to really stay on top of them. But the camp right now is not wheelchair accessible. We want to make it so you can take a wheelchair almost anywhere you want on the camp, so you can go to camp and enjoy most things that campers do. I mean, arts and crafts and drama. We're also going to have broadcasting and social media camps. We're going to set this up so everyone will have a chance to succeed, whether they are upright or not. And we've also we have a group that's coming in who deals with autistic children. So to be autistic friendly, they'll have to bring in their own medical staff and so forth, but we will be able to help them, guide them through everything that they would need. Paralympics is involved. Special Olympics will be involved. So we're just now branching out to that. And we're also looking for corporate donations, of course. But the beauty of it is, I sat down and I said, to name the camp, it doesn't have to be the camp itself named after Camp Berger. We can name it whatever. So we're going to sell the naming rights to the camp, like you would the Staples Center. And then we have 12 different cabins where campers stay in. So we can sell those naming rights as well. So I could have one cabin could be McDonald's, and the next cabin could be Wendy's. I mean, it could be anything. And it could be somebody that you would want to sponsor. So there's 13 or 14 avenues for people to also get their name recognized in our camp, not just on website that says, "Hey, make sure you head to Scarpelli's," which is a diner that closed, but Scarpelli's Diner or something like that. So it's in the money generating process right now, and we just have to stick with it. Also, on March 4th, when I wake up until April 4th, which is Easter Sunday in the States, I will be doing a hunger strike. So the only thing I will be having is water, medical beverages, and chicken broth. Those are the only things that I think I'll be having between March 4th and April 4th. Chocolate milkshakes don't count. Strawberry shakes don't count. But I want to do this, and I want to get my name out there. And there's been a few local reporters in Connecticut that have started with this. I've got to reach out here in Orange County and LA, and it's something that I really believe in. And the other thing is, we're also going to have a music camp. So there's been people that have sat there and said, well, how about if we get this involved and that involved? And we want them to come to us after we make an initial contact and tell us what we can do to have a music camp. I don't know anything about a music camp, but if somebody wanted to come in and say, hey, let me run this for this amount, we would be interested. And it's a process. We're at the beginning of it, but we're also set up as a nonprofit. I'll end it on this. We're also set up on a nonprofit where if somebody came forward with a donation, we can donate back to their foundation within 3 years. So we have people lined up to stay at the camp already. We just need the tip of the iceberg to get the water flowing underneath, and we'll be fine. And it'll be a struggle. We have a GoFundMe account, and it's funny, we're asking everybody to donate $1. And obviously, if I got 1 million people to donate $1, it would be kind of comical. But we're going to go through every social media that we can, and that's where we sit. And it's there's more to it, and you can contact me on Facebook at Berger Pond Hockey or Christopher Sheffield, and I'm on Instagram as Berger Pond Hockey as well. But I would be willing to talk to anyone for anything for this cause. This is a summer camp that is the pictures are unbelievable, but it's a great time, and we want people to enjoy it for years to come.
And we'll put it on.
I promise I won't.
We'll put it up on our website as well at the TSEshow.com.
I appreciate
as well as
again,
Berger Pond Hockey on Facebook, and then we'll put all the different social media links as well as the GoFundMe link that you can go right to it. So, look, there's millions and millions and millions of hockey fans out there. If we can get just 1 million of
Yep.
us, the hockey fans, to go donate $1, we're in. So,
yeah. I just want to add one more thing, is that right now my GoFundMe page is not linked up to any of our bank accounts, and it won't be until the 14th of June. So if for some reason the camp is sold to somebody else, or we fall so short that we can't even make a bid, the money goes right back to the people. I don't want to make any money. I don't want to stiff anybody on their money. And we would come out and make an announcement that that's what we're doing. That would be the defeat in all of this. But I want to make sure I stress that as well. But our goal is 1.25, and I pray every day that we get it. And I appreciate you, Raymond, stepping forward and putting us on the website. That's a tremendous thing for all of us.
And we'll put the logos and everything on all the shows that we do, and the little tags at the bottom of the screen that we run on the live shows and stuff like that. So just to get the word out there. And again, the GoFundMe, we'll put the links right there on the website and all of our social media as well to see if we can get that pumped up through there.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so
Yep.
First things first. I mean, look, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. We'll start quickly with some basketball news, and I was actually watching the game when it happened. So there were teams that were lined up already to go basically to the Final Four of the NBA. You had the Lakers, you had the Clippers, you had the Brooklyn Nets. Milwaukee was draped in there somewhere. Miami's draped in there, and then Anthony Davis goes down. Not a ruptured Achilles. just a strain, but they're shutting him down for 3 to 4 weeks. Some say the season. And I heard today, actually it was yesterday, as we were prepping for the show, that there were some people that said, nope, that makes the Lakers automatically maybe not even a playoff team, but a playoff team at best. I have a hard time with that. And look, Anthony Davis is a tremendous player, all-star. I get it. But to take one player, the way that this Laker team is built, and just say now, playoff team at best, now it's going to be Clippers and Brooklyn in the finals, I have a problem with just saying with one person going down that's your end-all, be-all.
Yeah, the NBA is a fickle soap opera, and the funniest thing is, with the Lakers, they have a gentleman by the name of LeBron James. Maybe you've heard of him, and I never count that guy out. That guy will do anything to win, and as he should, as every player in the NBA should. But I want to talk about one thing about the injury itself. So Durant lost 2 years because of this injury,
18
a year
months,
and a half.
Yeah, 18 months.
18 months.
Yep.
It was that funny bubble that he could have returned to, but they held him out wisely. Here's the problem I have is that every time I think of a foot injury, I think of Peter Forsberg, and I don't want to switch it to hockey, but Peter Forsberg grew up wearing graphs. He was a graph guy. It's a brand of skate. For those that don't know, it's like a Bauer or CCM. And he signed a contract with Easton. And they put his foot in an Easton skate and said, this is what you'll be wearing since you've signed a contract with us. And he started having the groin problems and the hip problems and the back surgeries and the groin surgeries. I think the NBA players who are tearing their Achilles and stretching, somebody's always out with a muscle pull. I think it's the shoes. And it's not like I'm blaming Nike or Adidas or Converse. They're always trying to change the style of the shoe. And that's what I mean, tearing an Achilles injury? Are you kidding me? I mean, how many do you have to have? I mean, it seems like for every 2 or 3 years, there's a rash of them, like 5 or 6. And the NFL is much worse. It's the same thing with everybody's got to change. They're always trying to up, the next shoe or make a better product, which is great. But they're not taking into account the human. And but anyway, that's how I feel about Anthony Davis's injury, and I hope he comes back. But you got to prepare for the worst if you're the Lakers, and if you're the Clippers or another Western Conference team, you're going to align yourself to make sure that you're going to make a pretty deep run in the playoffs. And the East, everybody laughs at it. It's Brooklyn or it's Miami or Milwaukee. Any of those teams can have a great 3 or 4 weeks and push the next team out. Boston, who has a great coach, Philly, Atlanta. I mean, there's some good teams and there's some bad teams, but at the same time, it's just so. The East is fickle, but that's what I would suspect more movement at the trade deadline now than before, because that's the king of the mountain is crumbling, but he's not going to crumble into the sea. I mean, they still have LeBron. So
and I think they'll get like the Lakers and Rob Pelinka will load up at the trade deadline if they have to, because honestly, the report is right now he's coming back to LA. They're going to reevaluate him. They're going to give him 3 or 4 weeks right after the All-Star break. Okay, but if it's an Achilles like that, or could potentially go into a Achilles problem, you're 21-7, I think right now. They just dropped the game a few nights ago to the Denver Nuggets. You're 21-7.
Yep.
You're already a playoff team. You don't have to win number one. You're a playoff team. So why not shut him down the rest of the year? Regular season, I'm saying. Get all these role players dialed in and ready to go. And then at the end of the season, if he's feeling up to it, which he should be at that point, then bring him back and let him steamroll through the playoffs. I mean, look,
Exactly.
keep him healthy. You don't want anybody
Yeah.
hurt. And because we broadcast here from Los Angeles, I would love to see the Lakers win again. But more importantly, keep that guy healthy, because if you don't, it won't be just this season. It'll be next season, and it'll be into the season after that. Achilles injuries with these guys that are 6'7", 6'8", 7 foot. That's no joke, man. You gotta be careful of that guy. So,
I want to throw this in as well, and it probably hasn't crossed over that much to the NBA. Maybe it has, but Lou Lamoriello would sit there and say, "I don't care where we finish in the Patrick division, because we're going to end up playing the Rangers and the Islanders, and it's not even a road trip." So the way I look at the Lakers and how this will mirror with that comment is, if I'm the Lakers, I don't care if I finish in the top 4, where I finish. It doesn't matter. You're going to end up playing a series in LA against the Clippers at some point, whether it's the second round, whether it's the conference finals. You're going to end up at home at some point.
well, and look at the other teams. Okay, like you mentioned, let's say you play Utah. Salt Lake City's an hour and a half flight. Let's say you play the Denver Nuggets. That's only a 2. You're not going east to west here. So even you're saying, that travel schedule alone is next to nothing.
Yeah, I think when the Lakers played Sacramento way back in the Shaq days, I think they flew up the afternoon of the game. I think they did.
Yeah, they did.
I will say though, with Denver and Utah, that I've experienced both altitude changes, and I've watched. I remember Detroit with the Red Wings with the masks on the bench, the oxygen masks, trying to just gulping the air. It looked like a fish out of water. You're right. It is. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, even Dallas is a 2-hour flight.
Right.
But when you play those games in your own arena and you're the road team, that's a freebie. I mean, the court, the arena. Hartford, when they played Boston in the playoffs, they would come home. It was a 2.5-hour drive, and for some odd reason, there were scattered games. Like they had a 3-day break between game 3 and 4 in Boston, or maybe it was a 1 and 2, or whichever it was.
Right.
But they would come home, and I could only imagine the Rangers, Islanders, and Devils. I mean, are you kidding me? You're going to go stay in a hotel in Newark where you could drive home in 40 minutes?
I've been in a hotel in Newark. You don't want to do that.
I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep this a PG show. But Rahway, which is right outside of Newark, is where the state prison is.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, that air horn goes off a lot.
Yeah.
And how do I know this? There's a hockey rink right next to the prison. So it's always something with hockey. But again, I mean, and another thing is that the Lakers have their own medical staff right there. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a huge deal with Davis going down. But part of it's almost like Tanaka and a Tommy John. Do you want them to just have the surgery and get it done and over with, or do you want to try to play through it? And I'm telling you, Durant is one of the luckiest men, and I mean walking the face of the earth. Because if he did any more damage to that tendon, everybody looks at it. It's like, oh, it's just a clean tear, and you stitch it back on, and you've got to have a great doctor to do that. But that's a lateral split. But if it starts to rise where it's a medial split, which is a rip that goes up the back of the leg, look out, because that tendon is only so long, and you could do some severe damage to it. And it's everybody laughs, but it's one of the tendons that you push your gas and brake pedal with driving a car.
Right.
I mean, can you imagine that? Hey, I can't drive a car anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and that's the thing
Brutal.
you have to look into
Brutal.
too is the long-term effects of this, right? So, all good health to Anthony Davis, but
Right.
again, my point of view that they're not just a playoff team. What you mentioned, they got this one guy. His name is LeBron James. He's not bad. He's not a bad player. He might do something.
He's
okay.
been around. He played on a few different teams.
Yeah, he's won it at a couple different levels here and there, I think. I can't remember. So one of the things that you mentioned, I had to laugh at this when you said this to me. The Dodgers weren't done. So the Dodgers go out, they get Trevor Bauer, and they pay him just a disgusting amount of money. And as they're loading up, they lose Jock Peterson. They lose Kike Hernandez. The pitching staff now is just gross with the starting five. And they were really doing that to keep pace with the Padres, keep pace with the Cardinals, keep pace with the New York Mets, and really stay on top of the National League. And then the question became, what do they do with Justin Turner? He had not signed yet. As of right this second, Justin Turner has re-signed with the Dodgers. 2 years, $34 million. You texted me when that happened. What bank did the Dodgers rob to get the money? Now, I will look at when I saw that he signed, I will tell you I was shocked because I figured the Cubs would dump something at him. I figured the Cardinals would dump something at him. I really thought Milwaukee was going to dump a lot of money at him. And here he is in Dodger blue again for $34 million. I mean,
I'll tell you, I actually thought it would be 2 years, $20 million. And to get the extra 14, I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Oh,
but
and an $8 million signing bonus too, by the way. $8 million signing bonus to add on.
So it's 42.
Yes.
So my thing is this: when you have a team like this, you go for it. You go for it. They haven't. If it wasn't a COVID year, they would have made money. So I think as of right now, they're 26 million up in the salary tax reset. So you're looking at, they're paying $26 million to play baseball this year. Most people pay, $65 to play Little League. They're paying $26 million to play in the major leagues. They needed to do this. I don't know if I would have gone to this extent. I don't like Bauer as much as Snell. I think Bauer is a little bit of a Rex Hudler, legend in his own mind. He's got talent, don't get me wrong, but is he as talented as he thinks he is? Is he as talented as he was in Cincinnati? I mean, you played Kansas City, Detroit, Pittsburgh. Who else is in that division that stunk last year? Also in the American League, they all stunk.
Well, and when you look at some of the look at his stats, his numbers as far as wins didn't go up year over year. His ERA came down, way down. But like you said, you're kind of feeding off the buffet there at that point, right? I mean,
yeah, it's you're beating up on. You're like Kramer at karate class with the kids. I mean, come on, those teams stink.
Right.
I mean, I've got an artificial hip, and I'd run on half of those catchers. I'll tell you right now. Here's the issue with Bauer, is he was a reclamation project in Cleveland. He was a third or fourth starter, wasn't going anywhere, and Kluber came out with some sort of like scouting thing and with his mechanics, and they taped him up, and he looked like somebody that would be in a cartoon or a video game. And they were looking at arm angles, and Kluber mastered it. And then Bauer said, "Hey, what's going on with this?" And he jumped in as well. So the best one to do this so far has been Kluber, and the second one has been Bauer. And when the Yankees signed Kluber, I knew there. Let me tell you, there's just something going on there. But Bauer has taken this and he's broken away from Kluber. He's broken away from Cleveland, obviously, and he's on his own. And now he's thinking all he has to do is refine his mechanics. But he still has any pitcher that can throw 90 plus miles an hour. He knows what he's doing. Most of the problem with him is between his ears. So do I trust him? Yeah, but oh my goodness, for $40 million, I don't know. My issue is this: is that he's gonna. I'll tell you exactly what will probably happen, which is, of course, my own opinion, but they'll win the World Series again, or they'll get to the World Series, or they'll lose, and it won't be because of him, and he'll be able to turn and say, I did my job. I'm going to be a free agent, and he's going to crack out. So I think it was for $110 million. He's getting 40 up front. He gets a $5 million buyout. So you're looking at $65 million over 2 years.
And you have buyout options after year 1 and year 2.
Right. So what I'm saying is that if he has a knockout year, he's walking away because he's going to leave $65 million on the table. He's going to sweep that right off the table, and he's going to go and sign somewhere for $200 million. That's how that's going to be.
Wow.
But that's what he has. That's where Major League Baseball is with him. But he's such an oddball. You don't know what you're going to get. I know he won't be in Cleveland again. I know he won't be in New York as a Yankee again. I really thought, and so did the Mets. They really thought they were going to the Mets. And Sandy Alderson, who is, if he's not the best GM in the sport, which I don't think he is, but I mean, a man's man, professional, Marine, old school baseball guy. He went to bed saying, this guy's going to sign the contract in the morning. And he woke up to the Dodger Blues. And everybody murdered him. Bauer in New York called him the bum. That's the bums from Flatbush, refugees. Everything came out. It's kind of comical when it happens. But,
yeah, Bauer, I think, has officially burned a bridge with Mets fans. I don't think he'll ever be, even if the Mets signed him for $2, I don't think he'd be celebrated in New York, at least as a Mets fan.
He would have to sign there long term with no opt outs, and that's not how he is.
He's an
opt out king.
Yeah.
What I personally feel is that he should have signed with the Mets, and he would have been. It's a bigger fish bowl. More eyes would have been on him. His social media would have gone up. Not to say that LA is Pittsburgh, but it's he, like, they were waiting for him. The Dodgers were like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll sign you. That's not a problem. And it was almost an afterthought. But in New York, he would have been page one. And it really is bizarre because he and Cole have had an odd relationship since USC or UCLA, which one of the schools that they went to.
UCLA.
And they the rumor is they don't get along. And Cole, if Bauer wanted to be a Yankee, Cole would have to give him the blessing. I don't think that happened.
No,
I think that the Yankees, I just think that Yankees would have done whatever it would take to sign him. But they also want to stay under that luxury cap and reset it. The Dodgers are acting as if there's no salary cap, and I am curious that in a COVID year, and even though the Dodgers have their own TV network, where do they get the money? I mean, that's all I've ever heard when I moved here in 2007 was I can't watch Dodger games on this cable service or that cable service, so you have to get Dodger TV. What? I don't even want to watch them anymore, and I've never seen any of the games. So, where's Vin Scully? I guess is the best way to put that. But he is Bauer likes to put the target on himself, and it's on him now. I mean, Cincinnati wasn't supposed to go anywhere last season. He got him into the playoffs. Let's see what happens now when he has that bullseye on him. And I'm telling you, the Padres are loaded with that pitching staff as well. They bought their staff. Don't get me wrong, and most teams do, but he is Bauer has made himself front and center. And what really is surprising, and it'll be a nice dynamic to watch, is you've got Trevor Bauer in your locker room in the clubhouse, and on the other side is Mookie Betts.
Right.
Like, are you kidding me? You can't have two polar opposites in anything in sports rather than these. You want to talk about Jack Klugman and Felix Under as the odd couple? You got it, LA. You got it.
Well,
and
this might be, like you said, that look, the Padres loaded up, the Cubs loaded up, the Yankees loaded up.
You mean the Cardinals loaded up?
The Cardinals loaded up as well. Now,
yep.
Look, I've been saying this for the last 3 or 4 years, but the Padres really went out and spent some money, which I think was great for their team and their fan base. I still think, especially National League West, you're going to have the Dodgers. I said this last year. I actually said it the year before. I've said it for like 3 or 4 years. I'm waiting for that Dodgers-Yankees World Series. And I think this year you may get your wish.
You may.
The way these teams have loaded up and what they've loaded up with. Look, the Dodgers had offense. And they had offense. I mean, oh my God, did they have offense last year? They needed 1 or 2 more pitching pieces, and they put them in. The Yankees just need to stay healthy. If the Yankees can stay healthy, that's the best team in the American League going away.
Yeah.
But they have to stay healthy. So if you can stay healthy through 162 games, I'm going to tell you right now, your World Series is Dodgers-Yankees. And if you wanted pitching duels, forget about it. There's so much the offense on both these teams is absurd. You're never going to have a 1-0 game, but it'll be fun.
No. You're right, but one thing you have to think about is I think they're going back to the old playoff structure or whatever they had set up. Can you imagine the Padres beating the Dodgers in the division? And it could happen. But can you imagine a 1-game playoff and you're the Dodgers? Like, who are you picking? Like, are you picking Kershaw? Are you going to have Bauer do it? And can you imagine if Bauer loses that game?
Well, the beauty of that, though, is you can kind of gravy train this thing where if you've got one game and you need to rest somebody for game 1 of the NLCS or the divisional series, the NLDS, you can kind of gravy train the game before that where you can have Walker Buehler go 1 or 2. You can have Julio Urias go 1 or 2. You can have Trevor Bauer go 1 or 2 if you had to do it. Now, the good thing with the Dodgers like that is their bullpen doesn't suck either. So you could gravy train that game for 1 game, but my gosh, it's, that just 1 game like that against a team like the Padres, no matter who you're rooting for, what team you bleed for, that makes me sick to my stomach to think that after 1 game, one of those teams won't go through.
Well, you got to figure this out as well, that I can guarantee you that if the Padres have Blake Snell on the mound, he will not be removed too early. Not like that fiasco with the Dodgers. Like, are you kidding me? Is it like who what was the action on that game in Vegas? I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Who takes Blake Snell out? So, but I also know that Blake Snell doesn't like the big stages. He'd rather pitch in front of an empty park than a raucous crowd. And I can only imagine San Diego, if they ever get into the playoffs and they're playing a series with the Dodgers, you will see Blake Snell in San Diego. You won't see him on the mound in in LA. I'd put money on that, and I'd put Darvish. He doesn't care, but Blake Snell, he didn't excel in Tampa, just because it was near the water. He doesn't like the big stage. Not a lot of them do.
Real quick,
So
we've got. Go ahead. Sorry.
I just think that you got to look at the possibilities of who else is in the playoffs. But those Dodgers, if they don't win the division, it's that Russian roulette of the one game and in. And I know this past year they had the best of three, which was great. But I mean, one game playoff and the Dodgers are home.
That was. I think they should just keep that. That was a fun little additive to the playoffs. Is that first round best of three? I enjoyed it because a lot of those went 3 games. Those were fun. And if you're clearly the better team, like the Padres were in that first round, they won both. Move on. I like that.
The funniest thing is that in Korea, in their playoff games, when they have the wild card, if you're the number 2 seed, so you're the top wild card team, and then you're playing a team like the lower wild card seed. If the top wild card seed plays the game and they win, they automatically move on. But if the lower seed wins the first game, then it turns into a best of 3. So,
that.
and so that was intriguing to me. And I also sat there and thought, well, why just have it so if the third seeded team, if they beat that second seeded team twice, that should be enough. And that's what it is. It's so the team can catch itself, but once that lower ranking team wins, all bets are off. Then you're going 3, and that's the bigger push, is that they want to eliminate those games and move on to the next round. But you could have it still best of 3 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is that's the divisional series. So you could be the Dodgers and play those 3 games, or best of 3. And then Thursday they'd start with whoever it was, and it'll probably be San Diego or the Dodgers. I have those 2 teams as the top 2 teams in the National League, and I do have the Cardinals and the Mets and the Braves and Miami. I'll have to do a baseball show or something like that, but that's what it looks. That's how it's shaping up for me. So
we'll get more baseball, more in-depth baseball, I should say, because pitchers and catchers are going to report in a few days, and spring training is going to start. So we will definitely get into that for sure. 2 more things I want to cover before we get off. We're up against it. Sure. But here's one question. I love to just throw one question out, and this is to all the listeners that are watching as well. Does anybody have a problem with Tom Brady launching the Lombardi Trophy from one boat to another? Because I thought it was magnificent. Tom Brady, that's the first time I think I've seen Tom Brady just kind of let it go.
Well,
and I dug
Tom
it.
Brady,
I loved it, Chef. I loved it because that's a sign, or a side of Brady. He's normally so calm and collected, and he's the guy. He's the bow tie. He's the guy. Not on that boat. Yep. My man was sloshed.
So Tom Brady is, if you've ever seen an athlete that's playing with house money, it's Tom Brady. I mean, he left the Patriots after winning 6 Super Bowls, and in his first year in Tampa, won the Super Bowl. So at home, by the way, I want to make sure I point that out.
Never happened, by the way. Never happened, but we did it.
Yep, I remember when it was in New York, and the Jets and Giants were like, "Hey, this is our goal." I'm like, "For what? Buy tickets." That would be the best way to get there.
By the way, real quick, one of our listeners just put on that was his most important completion all year long. Hey, look, if
Probably.
I don't know who catches it on the other boat. I don't know who it was.
I think it's Gronk.
It may have been Gronk. Did you think if Brady was throwing that thing, if anybody on the other boat was going to let that thing fall? No shot.
No.
I mean,
but the classic thing is that the lady that her dad made the Super Bowl trophies or whatever that thing is. First of all, you can't drink out of it, so why do I want to win it? But the classic thing is that she's griping and complaining. I'm like, hey, lady, why don't you take a look at the Stanley Cup?
oh,
I mean, Phil Bork took it apart, scratched his name on the inside, put it back together.
listen, look, you and I both know because we've heard stories. It ended up
Yep.
at the bottom of Brian Trotier's pool one year. Look, just a few years prior, and my man Scott Van Pelt pointed this out. Just a few years ago, the Washington Capitals won it, and not far from where Scott Van Pelt does Sports Center, my man Alexander Ovechkin with a number of his teammates were in a fountain with it, swimming. It's a foot. A foot of water. My man had it in the fountain, swimming around like it was like there was nothing. Cameron Brate, by the way, the tight end Cameron Brate, I think was the guy who caught it. Is what I'm being told here of one of my listeners. But
the classic thing is that I remember they had Edelman throwing out the first pitch, and Gronk was there with the trophy. It may have been the whole Patriots team, but they're in the batting cages underneath Fenway Park, and Gronk is standing there, and he was in the batter's box with the Lombardi trophy, and he squared around and bunted it, and it dented the football on the Lombardi trophy. Where was this lady that complained then?
Look,
she probably didn't. She probably lost some money on it.
I have no problem with Brady or Gronk or Cameron Brate or any of the guys. Mike, why did I just blank on his name? The wide receiver. Somebody, one of my listeners will tell me right now. All those guys. To me, they've got the right to go out and party. And if you're gonna throw, I would love to see somebody try to launch the Stanley Cup from boat to boat. That's a little bit harder of a pass to make.
35 pounds.
Right? But
my question is this. So the NBA trophy has the basketball, on the top of this, trophy. Is that hollow in there? Can you drink out of that thing?
I don't think it's. I mean, it's hollow, but I don't think you can drink out of it. And clearly, the Lombardi trophy. It's got a lid on it, but the Lombardi trophy's clearly hollow because Brady launched that thing like it was a paper airplane.
Yeah, and it was dented. But so my funny thing is that, out of all the four major sports, the Stanley Cup is obviously the holy grail.
Yes.
But the ugliest trophy, I don't even know how I could handle it, is the Major League Baseball. What the heck is that? A bunch of flags.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
We need to get somebody on that can explain that to us. Why is that? That's just terrible looking.
Yeah, but you know what? You bring somebody on, and the next thing you know, there's a movement going, and then they'll have a Bud ceiling. It's not even named after anybody.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Bud. It's Major League Baseball. I mean, I think the NBA trophy, is it named after anything as well?
I think it's the James Naismith Award. I think it's the Naismith Trophy.
Oh,
so
okay.
James Naismith,
That's
obviously,
cool.
and of course Lord Stanley for the Stanley Cup. The Lombardi Trophy, named after obviously the legendary coach Vince Lombardi. Look, could you pick a guy from baseball and call it the Babe Ruth Trophy or the Ty Cobb Trophy or something?
No, you're gonna have to have one of Miller Huggins or somebody like that from way back. They missed it. Baseball. If you want to see it, a sport, take a gun out and shoot itself in the foot, and then reload it and shoot the other foot. That's Major League Baseball. You got to be kidding me. Are you kidding me? I don't know. I don't know. But here's the thing: is that what I've always thought this too. The post season award for MVP, that's got to be Reggie Jackson. Okay, that's got to be Reginald Martinez Jackson Trophy. Post season.
But wait, could you not argue? And by the way, real quick, Mike Evans is who I was trying to think of. Thank you. One of my
Mike
listeners,
Evans,
Bobby, said Mike Evans. Thank you, Bobby. Could you not argue that it could be Derek Jeter?
No.
Really?
No. What's Jeter's nickname? Mr. November. I know he hit the home run in November, but Jeter also lost a couple of World Series. Don't get me wrong.
No, that's true.
But,
that's a good point.
And Reggie did as well, but come on.
No. Yeah.
You think of October. What's the first person you think of with postseason baseball? It's Reggie Jackson.
Yeah.
Others have won more. Others have probably had a higher batting average. But you're talking about it's Mr. October. It's not even, hey, there's October. No. It's Mr. October to you, pal. You know what I mean?
Show the respect
he
already.
He has a candy bar named after him.
Oh.
It was the most hideous candy bar you'd ever eat, but he still had one. He still today, you walk, and I know there's a little bit of a New York bias, but hey, Mark Sanchez is on the phone, or whoever's on the phone, or Joe Namath is on the phone, right to the top.
Right.
Doesn't matter who you're talking about.
Right.
It's Namath. So, but Reggie Jackson, that's where it's at. You don't get any bigger than Reggie Jackson. Now there's Bernie Williams has more home runs than Reggie Jackson. Yeah, because they played 9 series before they get to the World Series.
Yeah.
And Reggie's teams, they didn't go 7 games. They swept the Royals. I know that sounds like not like a lot, but that's it. And they were best of 5. Come on.
Wow.
The funny thing is, if it's not Reggie, it's Pete Rose. If you're talking about my era, obviously Mantle and DiMaggio and Ruth and Gehrig. Just to name Yankees, but they won. You could even look at the Dodgers with Jackie Robinson, but they won. That was how it was. But you want to do something, you want to change things up a little bit. And let me tell you, Reggie is going to want a cup for a trophy. He's going to want it. Yep. He's going to want you smiling and profiling with a cup full of booze on his trophy.
I like what you said though. Look, a trophy that you cannot drink out of is useless.
I don't want it.
I need a trophy that you can pour some sort of adult beverage into and partake. Yep. That's the beauty of the Stanley Cup. Look, I've seen stories. I've been with the Cup where the guys Sergei Brylin gave his newborn a bath in it. Joe Newendike made a Jello mold out of it. Dustin Brown, the first time around when the LA Kings won in 2012, him and his kids ate ice cream out of it. Look, that's awesome. That's a memory. What are you gonna do with the Major League Baseball award, with the exception of sitting on a mantle or table
and start a break off those flags and start a fire and make some s'mores or something.
Some s'mores and some Major League Baseball championship kebabs out of the flags. That is perfect.
Can you imagine? They're like, hey, we're following around DJ LeMahieu in his day with the trophy. And you look over and he's got his kids and his wife is standing there opening up Hershey bars, and they've got marshmallows jammed on the top of
the end of the flags.
And he's just waving it over the grill to toast the marshmallows.
Okay, that's what look, if Major League Baseball wants to keep the same stupid trophy, let them keep the same stupid trophy. But make the flags come out and we could do stuff with them. They could be
utensils.
Have
the flags be shot glasses.
or
flags are
you could do that
the
too.
Flags are shot glasses.
Okay. Last thing, we're up against time here.
Okay.
Look,
Sorry about
that's
that.
$1 million idea, by the way. We're gonna have to.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna have to trademark that somehow. Okay.
And
Last thing.
I want to go. I want to say one quick thing.
Yeah.
I want to go on record. It's Christopher Sheffield in Chef's Kitchen saying that the Major League Baseball trophy sucks. It always has sucked, and it always will suck until you can drink something out of it. And ditto the NBA and the Lombardi Trophy. That top should come right off.
See?
That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, and now it's out in the public. It's on record.
Yep.
That's what we've said. There.
It sucks.
Change it. Change. Take a page finally from the NHL on how to party after you've won a championship. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of that, this is our last thing because we only got a few more minutes. Our last thing is the Stanley Cup. We are well into the season now. There are a few teams that I think are holding up to what we thought. There are a few teams that are somewhat of a surprise to me. But the Maple Leafs, I think the Maple Leafs have all the trimmings to do it with the exception of one thing.
Yep.
And that's a Stanley Cup goal. I don't even want to say a Stanley Cup goaltender, Chef, because I don't think it would take a Stanley Cup goaltender for them to make it there. I think they need a better than average goaltender to make it. But I think outside of that, I mean, look, there's a few teams we'll get to, but I think the Kings are a little bit of a shock because they have not played all of their youth yet, which once they do, the NHL better hold on. The Sharks are just not very good. Vegas has impressed me a lot this year, which I thought that would drop off, and that is, if anything, Marc-Andre Fleury looks like he's 22 again. I mean, he's looked incredible. So let's just start down the line. What hole do we plug in for the Toronto Maple Leafs in that goaltender position for them to solidify a deep run of the Cup?
Well, here's my thing: is that when you have a goaltender, he's got to be a playoff goalie. And has Frederik Andersen ever won a playoff series? This ought to be good. He has not. I don't believe he has. If he has,
he didn't in Anaheim.
Well, he did in Anaheim, but now he's in Toronto.
Right.
And
I don't think he's won.
How long has he been a Leaf? 5-6 years.
Yeah.
This guy hasn't won a second round in 5 or 6 years, and he's not getting younger. And I don't know if you have a team that's going to win the Stanley Cup. I mean, it's a lot like the Dodgers. I mean, you load up, and the issue is, and I can hear the excuse already coming out of Toronto, is we couldn't trade for anybody because it's the 14-day quarantine. So now the government is permitting us from winning the Stanley Cup. It's always an excuse in Toronto, but they're in trouble. He is just not a Stanley Cup winning goaltender, and if they win it with him, it'll be in spite of him. It won't be because of him.
But I've never looked at Frederik Andersen as I've used the term on the show in the past with a playoff or Stanley Cup goaltender. And what I mean by that is a guy that is going to sit up and actually steal a game or two in any given series for you. Look at a guy like Patrick Waugh, who is possibly one of the greatest of all time. But look at Brodeur. And Brodeur has not the most flashy goalie or what have you, but can steal a game or two in a series. Jonathan Quick did that because I remember when the Kings were making a run in 2012, they would get up 3-0 in every series.
Right.
Then you would say, no one's beating Jonathan Quick 3 or 4 games in a row. That's how solid he was playing. Frederik Andersen is not that type of goalie. To me,
nope.
He's not the guy that's going to give you the sense of, if I'm up 2-0 or 2-1, well, you're not going to beat my goalie 3 out of the next 4 games. Frederik Andersen's not the guy. So to me now,
no, he's not.
You have to either put him aside and go sign somebody, or start making a trade to go get that type of goalie. And if you're making the run right now for Toronto, that's what you have to do.
So I'm going to throw a name out, and it's the easiest name that's out there. You've got to figure they have to make a trade. It's got to be in Canada. So Holtby in Vancouver has ruffled a lot of feathers. And you want to talk about a front office that's they're not on solid ground. It's almost like Arizona. They're not on solid footing. The GM, the coach, the whole shebang. Travis Green should have been given an extension after the great playoff run. He's in his walk year, which is unbelievable after that playoff run. He should have been signed immediately. Demko is the number one. He's going to take it over, and they've got $4 million sitting at the end of their bench. I would take a guess. There would have to be a third team involved that wants a goaltender or can eat a $5 million goaltender till the end of the season. And Carolina comes to mind, but you could see Holtby go to the Leafs, Anderson go to Carolina, and an exchange of picks going to Vancouver. And, Vancouver did a smart thing. They signed him to a low contract, and it's very tradable. And after this past week watching the Canucks play the Leafs, just horrible. I mean, there's a lot of friction in that locker room. And it's an easy trade for the Leafs because of that quarantine. So I know I mentioned Quick and his contract. It's a little bit higher than Anderson's right now.
Yep.
But
the Kings would have to absorb at least $2 million, if not more, of that contract to be able to make that deal work.
And the only thing that I could think of that would make that work would be high draft picks and the defense that the Leafs have that's on the horizon on the bubble to push in. And it's not bad, but, Liljegren just doesn't have a place to play. Sandin, he won't have a place to play either until they push out Dermott. But the Leafs won't sacrifice anything on the blue line, but Vancouver has a very appetizing chip for Toronto, and a player going to the States is easier than a player going into Canada. And, that's the only trade I could see would be Holtby going to Toronto and then Freddie Anderson leaving. And Carolina has always wanted Anderson. Just they've many inquiries, even this past off season, and it might be time. When you think, it's exactly what you said, Raymond. When you think of a Stanley Cup goaltender that's going to steal me a playoff series or lock it down where you're not going to beat me 3 of the next 4 games, Frederik Anderson is not on the list. It's not even like he's top 5. He's not even on the list. Holtby will have his work cut out for him in Toronto, but he's a proven winner.
When we look at other teams, the Lightning up at 10-3-1, I think right now, setting it after 14 games. No surprise there. The Panthers, to me, are a surprise that they're up that high. Here was the thing that I think over the last week or so shook me. The Bruins are playing like the big bad Bruins right now. Tuukka Rask is dialed in.
Yep.
I like that team. I love Carter Hart in Philadelphia. I think he's playing very well, and he is the future goaltender in Philadelphia. The Penguins started off iffy, if you will. Not very good. And then they decided to shake the snow globe. And they brought in guys that I think were, I want to say, I don't want to say a question mark. I don't know if that's the right answer. But these guys, Burke comes in. And Hextall comes in. Is this the ownership just trying to, we've got the players, we needed to add a few more? but the front office just was not pulling the wagon? I mean, why else would you make overhaul changes like that?
You know, when Jim Rutherford quit a few weeks ago, he thanked Mario and the other owner. He thanked the players. He thanked the training staff. He thanked everyone except for the head coach. And Jim Rutherford had a trade lined up with Chris Letang moving out, and it was squashed by ownership, and then that was it. That was the first and last straw for Jim Rutherford, and he walked away. Bringing in Brian Burke, I'm going to tell you right now, I could see Sam Bennett at some point being a Pittsburgh Penguin. He is a Brian Burke draft choice from his days in Calgary with Brad. And I also see a goaltender going there as well. You could see Frederik Andersen going there, and he would win a playoff series. And like I said, it'll be in spite of him. It won't be because of him. But anything, and I believe, I'm trying to think if this is true, I think Brian Burke drafted Frederik Andersen in Anaheim. So that goes way back. So, and I'm not sure about that, but
and Pittsburgh needs goaltending help. I mean, let's face it. They've got a good young roster, but they need a solid goaltender on the back end right now to settle things down in Pitt.
Yeah, and I'm really surprised that they just haven't picked one and just rode with them to see what they have. I mean, they don't have a lot of time either. It's a shortened season. It's not ideal, but they just Pittsburgh is such a it's an odd club. They don't have a lot of money tied up with 2 or 3 or 5 players, but it's just odd how it is set up with their salary structure. And you know, nobody thinks about this, but I think Sidney Crosby's 34 or 35 years old, and you know they're not going to trade Crosby, they're not going to trade Malkin, and they're not going to trade Letang. So they're going to build around what they have and go from there. Having Pittsburgh look at Frederik Andersen lights up my eyes, because I'll tell you right now, you could see Casey DeSmith or Jari going to Vancouver in a 3-way trade. I still want to see Holtby in Toronto. But, you know, Pittsburgh has a lot of affordable assets that they can trade. Kapanen is one. There's a few others that are still there, but their defense is a mess. It's kind of restructuring it. They've got a lot of good young defensemen that are just not there yet. And it's going to be tough. But, you know, for Vancouver to start unloading, you could see Elder go. You could see Holtby. You know, those are 2 players that Pittsburgh sure would love, and that would be kind of interesting with Holtby in the Pittsburgh locker room.
Boy, and but, I tell you, if you could get this to work with Vancouver, because Dumba is the go-to now in Vancouver. To me, he impressed me last year.
You mean Demko?
Oh,
yeah.
Demko. I'm sorry,
yeah.
Demko. As a kid, he really impressed me last year in the playoffs. Coming in completely cold, by the way.
Yep.
But the problem is what you're saying is Pittsburgh is not giving one goaltender a chance. But here's the problem you're having. You're playing the same teams over and over and over again. And if that team figures out that goalie, you know what they do is they watch film and figure out how to make that hole bigger. So I think what you're saying, though, is it's a shortened season. I don't have time to write out a guy to the All-Star break. Because at that point, if you do that and you've lost 2/3 of those games, guess what? You're not a playoff team this year.
You're sunk.
Yeah. So
you
just can't do that. You don't have time to do that. Now, if you're gonna pull this trigger, you're 14 games in, pull the trigger and get COVID restrictions aside, get Holtby coming this way to Toronto.
That could happen. The other thing is Hudobin has worn out his welcome in Dallas. I can't believe it, but he has, and he's been benched a couple of different times. He didn't dress for, I believe it was 2 or 3 straight games. They've really fallen in love with the Boston College kid, Ottinger, I think is his last name.
Yep.
And that's another team to watch, because they could trade Hudobin and get back Jari or DeSmith, and ride the two of them until Bishop comes back. It's a little bit of a different scenario in that division because the top four are pretty much set, and the bottom four, unfortunately, are set as well. There's a team that always flips over the Mason-Dixon line is like what I like to call the fourth and fifth seeds. But when all of those games are all caught up, you're going to look at, with all the cancellations, you're going to look at a Dallas team that I still believe will be in the playoffs. But it'll be Bishop will be back from his hip surgery. And if he's not, Dallas is prepared to go with what they have. They did last year. They didn't have Bishop. They really rode a backup goaltender all the way to the conference finals. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, look,
that's what,
as it stands, I think with we're going to do another show as we get more towards the halfway point. Well, what we might consider the halfway point after all cancellations,
right,
because there are some teams that have 12 games. There are some teams that have played 17 games. It's kind of all over the map.
Yep.
But when we sit and look, I mean, your leaders at this point, the Maple Leafs at 11-3-2. I don't think it shocked anybody. The Golden Knights are just tearing a hole in the West Division at 10-2-1. The Bruins again playing like the big bad Bruins of old. I really like the look of the Boston Bruins right now, and I don't like saying that because I'm not a Boston fan, but
nope,
the rest of the East Division needs to worry. If you're in the East, that Boston team looks very, very good. And then the thing about Dallas to me is where they landed in the division. They landed in the Central Division. Now for traveling, it makes sense. It works for them. But now you're in the division with the Lightning, Panthers, Hurricanes, and Blackhawks, who are all above them. So if you're Dallas, that's you've only played 12 games so far. So you're kind of ahead of the curve in that sense that you know what you need to do. But you're going to end up playing the Panthers and the Lightning and the Hurricanes 3 or 4 or 5 more times.
Yep, and they got to get on a roll. But they've the funniest thing is that we're talking about the goaltending. I know they're a plus. Last time I checked, they were a plus in the goals for, goals against, and Florida. Pretty soon that Florida slipper falls off that shoe, and it's usually around, the 3/4 mark. They really can't finish it, and Chicago is above them, I think, as well. But Chicago is just they're on some borrowed time there. I mean, it's smoke and mirrors. But they've also played the bottom teams. I mean, it's kind of comical. You watch Detroit and Chicago play 3 or 4 straight games. Chicago looks like the early '80s Islanders, for crying out loud. But yeah. But it's funny because in each division, other than the Honda West division, which I think is a farce to be calling a division named after a arena in the division. I have one team in each division that shouldn't be in the playoffs from my preseason rankings, and it's kind of comical. But the best is Pittsburgh and Washington. I know the last I looked, they were tied in points. I know they're playing against each other in the next few weeks, and that'll be pretty much it. Brian Burke is not a patient man. Brian Burke, and I'm not saying that he's pulling the strings, but when Ron Hextall goes to him with a trade, Brian is not one to wait. My biggest question is, and I know you're up against it, we could probably end it with this. I just want to know 2 things. Is Brian going to be impatient when they get his bagel order wrong? And then who's bringing him the cheeseburgers between periods? That's all I want to know.
Well, if things fold in Phoenix, we could have Paul Bissonnette go up there and be the special assistant to Berkey and make sure he gets his double cheeseburgers up there. So
let me tell you, when that man gets a bagel wrong in the morning, he is not a pleasant customer. I have witnessed that firsthand. Brookside Bagels in Simsbury, Connecticut. I was fresh out of college, and I look over and Brian Burke is sitting there, and he knows I know who he is. And I'm standing there, and he goes, "What do you think you're looking at?" And I go, I think I'm looking at last place." And he goes, "Good. That's good. I like that."
See?
But that was great. I've met him numerous times. Great man, but man, do not get in the way of this man and his bagel in the morning. And for God's sakes, make sure those cheeseburgers are hot in between periods.
And it's
My goodness,
it's going to be sink or swim. It's either going to be they're going to do fantastic and make some great moves and push for a cup this year, or that ship is going to sink fast. So we'll see.
Yeah, he is not one to, man. We could do a show on Berkey, but I will say the only other NHL icon that I know that has food problems is Barry Melrose with the donuts. And from what I understand, he ate every donut in a shop once. I think that's a lie, but I wouldn't put it too far past it. And it was Kelly Chase that told me that too. He goes, "How many more donuts can a man eat?" You know, it's
that's good stuff. Chef,
we'll
we're
have
up against
we'll have to do a Whaler show at some point.
Oh,
so.
absolutely. And there is a group on social media somewhere on Facebook or something like that. It's something about the best uniforms out of any sport, and the Hartford Whalers for me are right up there because that's just classic. So
it's funny. They're 7th or 8th in sales every year, and it's like,
and they don't
hey,
exist.
you want to put a nope.
That's the best.
Hey, you know what? Undefeated since '97. How's that? You want to talk about a record?
Take that with you. Oh my goodness!
And
right.
they've also had the most Whaler parades since 1997 as well. There's a Whaler parade every year.
Sure, they have
every year.
For more information on our show, you go to the tseshow.com. The podcasts are up there. There's 2 brand new episodes that are up there. It's one with Mike Bass from Mike Bass Coaching. He tells me some great stories about Marge Schott. You will love that episode. Go check that out. And then there's some other ones. And then this one will be loaded up there as well. As soon as we get done here, we'll edit that and get it all on. And then go to Berger Pond Hockey on all the social media. And then we're going to put up the GoFundMe page on our website as well, so you can go donate. If you're a hockey fan, if you're a sports fan, I won't even put it to hockey. If you're a sports fan and you enjoy what we do, go to the GoFundMe. Just give $1. And if we can get enough people to give $1, there you go.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it, and I hope that it's a rousing success, and we have shows from camp. That would be that'd be unbelievable.
That's what we're trying for, by the way. Oh, and I wanted to also mention before we hit the play button here on the music, before we go, the next episode that we're taping for the podcast is again with another sportscaster who is going to be at the outdoor games next week. Me and Chef were trying to get out there, and we were just going to go set up at the Denny's across the way. I can't get there that weekend. However, we do have one of the sportscasters from Sports USA is going to be with us, Ted Sobel, who Sports USA is covering both games out in Lake Tahoe. So we're going to have him on so we can talk to Ted Sobel about all of the different stuff that's going on there in the outdoor games. And hopefully here, at least here in California, if you're listening to us across the country, I hope it's getting back to normal of some sort. You guys have been great. Thank you again so much. All of our listeners on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Mixcloud, everywhere, thank you for being with us. Be good humans. We'll see you guys Thursday. Sorry, next on Thursday. See you guys then.
Wait a minute.
Hold on.